Today is the 4th of December, 2013, Wednesday. After opening the retreat, Sayadaw was not able to give the Dhamma talk for a few days. One day was the Uposatha day, and other things also prevented his being able to give the talk until today. At the opening ceremony, Sayadaw said that people who have come here from all over the world are related in an ordinary way on 2 or 3 levels. And to become related, according to the Buddha, according to what the Buddha taught, in order to create Dhamma blood and to make it circulate, Sayadaw said that he mentioned this, the being Dhamma relatives, and he mentioned Dhamma blood. So what is this Dhamma that Sayadaw has mentioned? Today he would like to summarize this in about an hour. The Buddhist texts have been translated into various languages. The word Dhamma is translated into many languages. And its meaning is to some extent revealed. When people study the Buddhist texts, they know this. But to what extent the deeper meaning of the word Dhamma is revealed in the texts that people have read, he doesn't know. He only is familiar with the Buddhist texts. So he would like to speak about what is said about Dhamma in the text, what is the theory, and what is the practice what results when it's put into practice, and if we combine theory and practice, what is the result of that? So he would like to talk about Dhamma in theory and in practice. We all recite Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. These Pali words reveal the 3 refuges. We go to refuge. We go to the Buddha as a refuge. We acknowledge that the Buddha is our refuge, that the Dhamma is our refuge, that the Sangha, these are our true refuges. So the Dhamma that Sayadaw will speak about is this Dhamma that we speak about when we take the 3 refuges. So we acknowledge the Buddha as our refuge, the Dhamma as our refuge, the Sangha as our refuge. Of course, people may just recite these words without really knowing the meaning of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. What does it mean to take refuge? What is it that we are taking refuge in? So we need to know what this Dhamma is, how to practice it, and when we do, what its abilities are, what does it bring about. We need to know about what the capabilities are of the Dhamma. The essential meaning of Dhamma is expressed in the sentence, Dhareti Dhammo. The Dhamma is what bears one, what uplifts one, what protects, guards, looks after one. And when the powers of the Dhamma are fully developed, this protection of the Dhamma is there continuously. Who is it that the Dhamma protects and bears? When it is said the Dhamma bears the Dhamma bearer, is it the person who reads about the Dhamma in books? Is this the one who the Dhamma will protect? Is it the one who studies the Buddhist literature? Or one who hears the Dhamma talks? So it is said, Atanang Dharinte. The Dhamma bears the one who bears the Dhamma. that is the one who practices according to the instructions of the Dhamma. If one simply practices satipatthana according to one's own idea about it, the Dhamma won't uplift such a person. It's only the one who practices in accordance with the Dhamma, the one who bears the Dhamma, that is the one who the Dhamma then again bears, uplifts, and protects. It's said in the text, yathanusetang patipajante. That means, that is the word described for the one who bears the Dhamma. The Dhamma bearer is the one who practices according to what is shown in the text. The Dhamma of Pariyatti, the scriptures, shows the correct method of practice, and one who practices according to what is shown is born by the Dhamma. In the Buddhist text, for the most part, there are instructions about what to avoid, what bad things we should avoid doing, and instructions about what to do, what good things that should be done. And in explaining this in the text, it's shown that when we do certain bad things, then bad results come. So these actions are supposed to be avoided. And when we undertake good things, good results come. These results that are gained from undertaking good things are shown in the text. The results that are gained both at the present moment and in the future. So the texts show that when we avoid doing bad things, therefore we don't incur bad results. And this in itself is a good thing. Then further we learn that also to do good things brings good results. So the scriptures, Pariyatti, show the correct method of practice. They show what to do. So first of all, we have to study to learn the method of what needs to be done and to learn what it is that we need to avoid. So this is the first way in which one bears the Dhamma, is by studying and learning the correct method. And when one puts that into practice, one gains special Dhamma. So this too is another way of being a Dhamma bearer. And third, when one gains special Dhamma, one experiences peace. So all these three types of people are ones who bear the Dhamma, who practice according to the Dhamma. So first of all, there is learning the correct method of practice according to Pariyatti Dhamma, according to what is in the scriptures. Second of all, using that method and gaining path, fruition, and realization of Nibbana. Third, with the knowledge that one gains, one experiences true peace. So this in sum is the one who bears the Dhamma, and whom the Dhamma in turn bears and uplifts. So to repeat, Sayadaw said that one who practices the Dhamma, who bears the Dhamma, yet is described as yathanusetang patipajante in the text. That means that one needs to practice according to the instructions. There are the instructions, and accordingly one has to practice. So then, by practicing according to the Dhamma, by bearing the Dhamma, one gains the Dhamma. So, by practicing, one gains the Dhamma, and then one is able to use use what one has gained. One can't use something before one has acquired it, before one has gotten it. For example, we work to get money to feed and clothe ourselves, to feed and clothe our families. And because we work, we get money. When we work, we have to satisfy the requirements of the job. We have to know how to do the work, and we have to apply energy. And when we do that, we get corresponding results. We get a salary or benefits of some type, and what we get is ours. And once we have gotten it, we then can use it. By practicing the Dhamma, we gain results. Whether a person is a monk or a nun, a layman, a laywoman, whoever it is, first of all, one has to study the method of practice. One should have the desire to gain the results that come from the practice. So after studying, one also has to apply the practice. There has to be practical work. And third, due to application of the practice, one gains the Dhamma. And fourth, one is able to use what one gets. And in the past, this is the common way of expressing it now, but in the text it's mentioned as, for example, that one can realize Nibbana, that Nibbana is one's object. But the way we say it now is we are able to use what we get through the practice. So this is what is meant by practicing and bearing the Dhamma. The Buddha spoke about the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, the noble truth of the cause of suffering, the noble truth of the end of suffering, and the way to gain the end of suffering. So there are these four. What the Buddha spoke about is basically four groups of things. The truth of suffering is to be known. So we learn about what is suffering and its cause. Its cause is grasping onto things. The Buddha taught a way to put an end to grasping. If we follow that way, we gain happiness, true happiness. The Buddha pointed out the path. So these are the four groups of things the Buddha taught. And if we are to draw a conclusion, how we start out is very important. We need to start out by learning what is the method. So how do we learn? We learn by hearing, listening. We learn by reading books and other things. We learn by discussion. So here there will be daily Dhamma talks for us to listen to, so we can learn by listening. And now we're not supposed to read any books, but the teachers will tell us what to do. And the teachers will give instructions about what we have schedules for sitting, for walking, how long to sit, how long to walk, those things. And there was also discussion. The teachers explain about the practice and what benefits come from the practice. So we listen to the instructions, we listen to what is said, and if we don't understand, then we can ask. And by doing this, by studying the method, learning in these ways, through listening, through the discussions with the teachers and so on, those who don't know about the method of practice will come to know. Sometimes what we learn disappears. So once we know the correct method, what is it that we should do? The Buddha taught 3 trainings to raise up the quality of our life. The word for training in Pali is sikha, S-I-K-K-H-A. And this is what is to be practiced. This means training or practice. So the training of sila, which controls our physical and verbal behavior. Sila needs to be kept. And samadhi, the training of samadhi to control our minds. And the training of panya or wisdom, how to develop knowledge. And by developing knowledge, one's status becomes uplifted, one's status improves. So sekha is that which is to be practiced. And the Buddha gave the instructions. First of all, we need to learn the instructions, and then we need to apply them. All these 3 trainings need to be developed. When one doesn't know the correct method of practice, when one doesn't know about the 3 trainings of sila, samadhi, and panya, then mostly one commits transgressive acts. One is just driven by what one wants. And one tends to think that it's enough if I get what I want. And what is important is to get what I want and not how I get it. Whatever means, it's okay. So people who think like this turn to killing or stealing. They turn to sexual misconduct, lying, in order to get what they want. This is because all they know is their own self-interest. With this type of attitude, one has no desire for other people to have good things. There's no feeling of metta, loving kindness. Loving kindness is the wish for others to be fulfilled, to have what they need. And compassion, karuna, is the wish that others be relieved of suffering. So metta and karuna are very important. Beginning with one's family relations, they're an essential base to have. But when there's no, because when one has metta and karuna, one will be able to be patient with others. But when there's no thought of other people's welfare and no concern for suffering that other people may experience, then one has no patience. And when one is hurt by someone else, then one retaliates because one has no ability to be patient. So without true loving kindness or metta, then hatred overwhelms one. And without compassion, cruelty, the tendency to be cruel, overwhelms one. Looking at the situation of people in the world, most people are only interested in themselves, their family, their group. They're only interested in what is good for them or their family or their group. And when people have that type of attitude, then there's no knowledge of what is beneficial and not. There's no ability to weigh what is really good to do and what isn't. what is suitable to do and what isn't suitable. All that one thinks about is, will it benefit me? And thinking that way, one will do whatever one thinks of in order to get that result. So with that focus on just getting for oneself, for one's group, one's family, one will turn to transgressions like killing. If killing is something that would bring about what that person wants, then they would do it. So because of this inability to think, to reflect correctly, transgressions occur. We need to have the knowledge about that good acts bring about good results and bad acts bring about bad results. This is like knowing about what food is good to eat and what food is bad to eat. If we eat food that's good for us, then we get good health. We get good results. We get good health and strength. If we eat bad food, food that doesn't agree with us, food that may be poisonous, then we will suffer. And when we know this, we eat the food that is good for us. We eat it when we need to, regularly. And we just give up the foods that are bad for us because we know the bad results that come. And in a similar way, when we understand that good actions bring good results and bad actions bring bad results, we'll give up doing bad deeds because we know that not only do they harm other people, but they also harm ourselves. And we'll do good deeds because we know that they bring us good results. So everyone should have this basic knowledge. If we have this basic understanding, then obsession with one's own selfish needs will disappear. And one will stop transgressing. One will stop committing wrong acts. One will not only because one is concerned for others, but also because one is concerned for oneself. So one develops, with this understanding, one comes to have loving kindness, wish for other people to be well and happy, and compassion, karuna, the wish that other people not suffer. So this knowledge of good things, good deeds bringing good results, and bad deeds bringing bad results is very important to have. For the most part, people of the world aim at worldly education and worldly goals such as feeding their family and making sure that they are. People of the world mostly aim at worldly education, feeding their family, and all their lives, most of people's lives, for the most part, is spent at just fulfilling their worldly needs. So people only think about how they can have what they want in this lifetime. They don't think about anything beyond this lifetime. So there's no emphasis on moral behavior. And, sorry. So, no, so people don't think about how to control their physical, verbal, or mental behavior, how to make them good. So, further, when one doesn't have the ability to put oneself into another person's place, one will turn to misdeeds. such as killing or stealing, committing sexual adultery, lying, doing drugs and intoxicants. So when people focus on just fulfilling their wants in the moment, they will do these sort of things, and people will commit many kinds of immoral acts that cause harm to others. For example, becoming involved with other people's spouses. So these are types of immoral behaviors that are common in the world. But if one understands that this is unjust, that these behaviors are unjust, then one will avoid doing them. With that understanding of that these acts are unjust, one won't give in to one's selfish desires. Although one may have desires, one will avoid acting on them because one understands that these behaviors are not right. So this is the training of sila, controlling one's physical and verbal behavior so that others are not harmed. And when one keeps sila, one doesn't cause harm to other people. So the attitude of both shame regarding what is wrong and fear to do things that are wrong are important attitudes to have. One considers, when one understands that certain acts are wrong and are not to be done, then one feels ashamed to do them, just the way one would be ashamed to pick up a piece of shit, a piece of feces, because if we touch that, it will make us dirty. So people don't want to touch it if they have a healthy shame about it. And the same way, too, people who understand what is unjust will not do something that is wrong because of fear of the results. The same way that we wouldn't pick up a red-hot iron burning ball because we know that it would burn us. So these attitudes of shame, and moral fear are what help us to avoid doing wrong. So with these attitudes, one keeps oneself from committing wrong acts. And doing so, one controls oneself and one protects others at the same time. In this way, one develops metta and karuna for others. One is able to consider, even if one might feel tempted to do wrong, one has the ability to consider that I wouldn't like it if someone were to do that to me. So one has the ability to put oneself in another's place and thus refrain from doing wrong. So this is the training of sila sekha. This is the first training that needs to be undertaken. And it's not something that is limited to Buddhism. People of every religion and people who are without religion should all keep sila. It's not something that is simply related to Buddhism. And if we think about it, we will realize that this training of morality, of sila, is something that is truly needed for everyone. So among the 3 trainings that are to be undertaken, when one keeps sila, whether it's through having loving kindness and compassion, metta and karuna for others, or whether it's from understanding that by doing misdeeds, one is dirtied oneself, one becomes unclean, and also others are harmed. Through some way or other, one understands to keep sila. and one avoids physical misdeeds and verbal misdeeds. By doing this, one's physical and verbal behavior become clean and pure. So we gain this result of physical and verbal purity. One comes to possess this. By putting into practice the training of sila, one possesses the result, which is cultivated, lovable behavior. So, because we control ourselves through not committing misdeeds by way of body and speech, and because we have the understanding of why this is a good thing to do, greed, hatred, and delusion, lobha, dosa, and moha are all reduced. We don't give in to transgressive greed, transgressive anger, transgressive delusion. And when we control ourselves like this, we gain peace. If we think about it, if everyone in the world were to keep 5 precepts, just 5 precepts, the world would be a very peaceful place. The Buddha instructed that some acts are to be avoided and some things are to be undertaken. If we avoid misdeeds, then we become clean. Our behavior becomes clean and pure. So doing this, we become truly human. And those immediately around us and our environment at large become peaceful, as well as our own inner life becomes peaceful. So this training of sila is something that should be done. And if one keeps sila, then the Dhamma of sila, of morality, it keeps us from being degraded. It elevates our life. It lifts us up. Sayadaw will continue this topic tomorrow. That's all for today. Sadhu.